Hi guys, this is Jasmine Harlow, the host of Rare by Design, and I wanted to start off this episode by just kind of going into a little bit about, what it's about. So this is an introduction, I guess, to me and my journey in life, a very brief one. Like, there's not much I could really explain in 23 minutes, but I just wanted to highlight the microphone issue on this episode. I have now invested in a good mic, and so the podcast post this episode will sound so much more refined, but I couldn't release this into the world without talking about and acknowledging the sound quality. Anyway, I'm really excited to get into the nooks and crannies of Rare by Design. This is an introduction to me, very briefly. It's always great to kind of start on understanding the premise of who I am and why I've ended up here. There is so much more to why I'm here doing this podcast, but as a brief introduction, I don't think you need more than 23 minutes of me just riffing. I'm learning the importance of producing a podcast, and I'm just grateful that you guys are here listening to me waffle on. So enjoy. This is episode 2 and an introduction to me.
Hello. My name is Jasmine Harlow, and this is the Rare by Design podcast. So I'm going to take this one as a bit of an introduction. And I think I'll go into a little bit of background. I am 40 years old from Birmingham, England, and I am many things. I'm a multi-hyphenate by definition. Generally, I'm multi-passionate, multi-dimensional, all the things. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this podcast into form. I'm a chatterbox anyway. I love to talk. If you're one of my closest friends, you're like looking to get one of my long voice notes, which is like a TED talk. But no, in all seriousness, I wanted to share the knowledge that I have around human design and just life experiences in general. Because I'm kind of sick and tired of these like labels that we're given and these expectations that we are required to meet in the modern world. And the more I meet all kinds of people from many walks of life, the more I realise that we are not to be put in boxes. We are not one-dimensional. We all have different facets about us. Our individuality is nuanced. And somehow we're expected to kind of live within a system and its parameters. And if you are on the edge or fringe, so to speak, you are then deemed other. And that's actually something to be celebrated, in my opinion. And one of the reasons why I've wanted to talk about human design, because of its unique way of sharing the brilliance of who you are as an individual energetically. I have done many readings now. I've been into human design for, 5 to 6 years. Yeah, about 5 years. So let's do a bit of a backstory of how I kind of have arrived at where I am today, and I've yet not explained where I am today, but let's go back. So I graduated in fashion design. I have a BA honours in fashion design. When I finished university, I was ready to take on the world of being a creative. I wanted to be a designer. Although, if my memory serves me correctly, there was an element where I wasn't actually 100% sure if I really wanted to do that. I just know I enjoyed being creative and using the body as a canvas. I was always creative from a young girl. I watched my mom make clothes and make patterns and create outfits on the sewing machine. I remember crocheting from a very young age. In school for my GCSEs, I did art and textiles. I did a lot of creative elements. I enjoyed, using my hands and creating something from nothing, essentially. And that's how I was raised. My grandmother was also really skilled on the sewing machine. My mom uh, literally is talented via her hands. Anything she puts her hands to, she creates something wonderful. My grandmother was the same. And so that influenced me in lots of ways. And so creativity and being artistic and expressing it in my own unique way has always been a thing. Loved customizing my own clothes when I was younger. Like I would cut a pair of jeans and make it into a denim skirt. I would add details onto things. I made some of my own things. I didn't really heavy get into making my own clothes. I would customize things, adjust them. I love designing, but the making process was never that much fun for me. But I would do it regardless because I could. And so that's why I left university and then tried to get a design job, fashion design job, and the industry was saturated and there was only one place to go for that, and that was to London. And I was a bit, reluctant to do that. I wanted to, I guess, kind of come outside the box a bit and not be contained within this identity context. Even in my degree, I was told that I wasn't conceptual enough. I needed to make clothes that were like really out there and futuristic. I just love a good style. I'm a classic girly in I'll go on the edge of fashion as and when I need to, but I also have a style. And so even then there was like labels and, if you didn't fit in it, you were kind of othered. Anyway, after many, many months, okay, over exaggerating, a few months, 3 to 1 months of job hunting after you graduated, I ended up getting a job working for a prestigious brand and having to move to Watford specifically, but to London essentially. And I spent 12 plus years in the fashion buying and merchandising industry, working for incredible brands. I was a menswear buyer, and I also bought for online, so an e-commerce merchandiser. At the end of my career, took me to living in Amsterdam for a couple of years, which wasn't part of the plan, but it was a dream come true. And I managed to go with my partner and my little boy at the time, he was 18 months, my first child, and live in another country and get paid well doing what I enjoyed. Although at that point it was getting to the stage where I wasn't really loving what I was doing anymore. And motherhood played a part in that. I was really trying to rediscover myself post having my first child and figuring out who I was within motherhood and career wise, because there were lots of carrots dangled and lots of opportunities to pursue, kind of climbing the corporate ladder, so to speak. And it just wasn't my back. I didn't feel like anyone around me was particularly happy. And I was like, do I? And not that if someone else's happiness defines my happiness, but there wasn't much evidence of people really enjoying their life at director, VP level. So it seemed to me, or my interpretation of it. So anyway, I moved back to London, worked for another company, had my second child, and we moved back to Birmingham. And I was like, I'm done. I can't do this rat race, corporate life, and be a mother and pursue a career. And so we came back to Birmingham and then had my third and final child. And in amongst my postpartum months, I was like, I need to do something that is going to fulfill my needs and my sense of drive and purpose. I've always been super ambitious, and so therefore I wanted to pursue my own walk. I've always had dreams and aspirations of creating my own brand, interestingly. And I'd started kind of going to business school with my friends, and we created a little collective while we were in London before we moved back to Birmingham, getting a taste of doing things for myself and not working for someone else. And that boded well. And after having my third child, I trained in life coaching, trained in sound healing, went on my own sort of spiritual personal development journey, spiritual journey, a bit of an awakening. There was an awakening with every single child. It was a different version of myself that was born through every child. And then, trained in sound healing. Was like, that's it. I'm going to use sound as a way to kind of get people back into their bodies and really heal themselves and understand who they are and get into their purpose. And then lockdown happened. Anyway, fast forward to today, I then came along human design. I've always been somebody who's interested in how people work. So whilst I was very creative in college, I also did A level in psychology because I'm just intrigued by how the mind works and what makes people tick. And I decided that I wanted to deepen my experience and my knowledge even in how the mind works. And that was one of the reasons why I got into coaching specifically, trained in NLP, trained in timeline coaching, hypnotherapy. But what I want to say is like the umbrella sort of reason for delving into that. Obviously, first and foremost, there were things that I felt I needed for myself. I think that's where a lot of us kind of pursue our ambitions and dreams. Maybe it's where we want to, where a need isn't met and we want to meet that. And so we will then kind of delve deeper into it for ourselves and transitioned into then, sharing that knowledge and experience through my services. So I've been doing readings, human design readings for a couple of years now, officially from 2022. I've met many women from different walks of life, and specifically women because women are the ones who seek, or at least have sought human design as a tool to help them with their sense of awareness and longing to learn more about themselves. There's been a couple of men within that, but mostly women. But I am very passionate about helping women really get to see their truth and divine potential. And there's nothing extra they have to do. It's about leaning into what already exists within you. And I think that's one of the reasons why human design stands out as an amazing tool for me. I love it. I think it's great. I will never say to anyone it's the be all and end all. I think it's important through all faiths, belief systems. Even though human design is not faith, it's actually an awareness tool that we just take what we need and leave what doesn't resonate. So, but that resonates for me in human design, and I think that's because the backbone of it is a lot of astrology. So, human design is a synthesis. Design is a synthesis of 4 esoteric wisdoms: the I Ching or I Ching, sorry, which is Chinese astrology. Then you have Western astrology, you have the Hindu chakra system, and then you have Kabbalah system. And there's a bit of quantum and physics and science kind of thrown in there as well. Like highly thrown in because it's not thrown in. There is like rhyme and reason to existing within it. And I think that speaks to, because there's so many wisdoms that come together collectively for human design to be a system. It speaks to the layeredness of it. It's complex in many ways, but also super simple in at its core and its truth for human design is an awareness tool. It's a tool that helps you make the best decisions for yourself. It's helping you lead from your intuition and looking at the energetic blueprint of you from the day that you were born. So essentially, there's a snapshot of where all the planets were when you were born, and there's also a snapshot 88 degrees before you were born, i.e. 88 days, aka 3 months. And those two kind of snapshots or times are fused together and then placed on an energetic body map. And that's where you can kind of see the Hindu chakra system come in. So if you are aware of the chakra points, you have centers in human design, and the centers are expanded from the 7 chakras. So there are 9 centers in human design, where the heart chakra had basically split into 2, and the solar plexus split into the spleen and the solar plexus around the 18th century, where consciousness had a shift, essentially. The collective consciousness had a shift. And the I Ching is the backbone, the core of human design. If you were to place the zodiac wheel within the I Ching, the 64 gates or 64 archetypes or energies attributed to the I Ching sits alongside the zodiac wheel. So every single zodiac sign has about 5 and a little bit gates or energies that sit within it. And they're a flavour of that zodiac sign. So that's where the I Ching comes in. And then the Kabbalah is kind of essentially, if you think of the tree of life. Is it the tree of life? I need to double check that. That sits within the body graph as well. So these highways, these connections where like an energy center meets another, and they create the channels in the body graph. It would be so much easier if I visually show that. So hopefully I'll find a way to kind of place that next to me. But the body graph essentially is you. How do you use your energy? How does your energy want to show up? What role do you play in this lifetime? There are lots of aspects that you can look to in your design to help you understand yourself at a deeper level. You have your type, you have your strategy, which is intrinsically tied or connected to your type. Your authority can be different depending on what your type is, but that intuitive and the correct decisions for yourself. You have your profiles. Your profile is derived from your sun and earth gates in human design. Every single gate has 6 lines within it, which is known as profiles. Line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And those lines are a flavour of the gate number. So I am born in the 31st gate, which is the gate of leadership and influence, and born in the 3rd line, so 31.3. And the 3rd line in human design is known as the martyr. And the martyr is somebody who loves trial and error and love experimenting. And it doesn't sound like the greatest of words, but essentially what it means is that you martyr yourself in small ways. Try and test things out to see if they work or not. So the way that I go about life is trialing and erroring things to see what works and what doesn't, and I leave what doesn't work and keep what does. And essentially, that makes me somebody who's quite agile and flexible and a bit adventurous and a bit of a risk taker, because I want to see what's working and then just hold on to that. And then what that means also is that I have the opportunity to share my knowledge with other people and my experience. So being experienced is one of the key things about being 3-line. You have experience because you've tried things. There are no errors or mistakes being a 3-line. It's all about learning lessons. But essentially, sometimes it can kind of come up as such. It can feel like you're somebody who's a bit messy and a bit flaky and a bit of a pivoter. So yeah, I kind of segued a little bit there just to kind of explain the profile. But essentially, there's lots of elements of human design that I would love to flesh out and talk to you all about. And I wanted to do it through in a different way, in a way that I feel comfortable in sharing it, and hopefully a little bit of fun as well. So I'm going to use personalities, celebrities, characters to help you understand human design and a deep. I'm good at, and I'm glad to say this, is that I can break down complex data and information and share it in a simpler way, hopefully. But I still offer the detail because I have a lot of, I don't have a lot of Virgo in my chart. I actually have Virgo once in my chart. It sits in my Mercury, which is about communication and the message that I share. So the ways in which I share my message is very Virgo and a little bit, perfectionist and got to clear all the details and cross all the T's and dot all the I's. I just wanted to do all the things because when you know all the things, then you can go out and be extra brilliant if you're not doing that already. Anything that human design offers, actually, in general, I believe, is not necessarily anything you don't already know to be true about yourself. It's a very affirming tool. It gives you a huge permission slip to just be like, oh, yeah, that's how I am. I knew that. And that's why you do that. Oh my God, right, let me just carry on doing that, or let me work on this so I can use it more efficiently. It's a brilliant affirming tool, validating, and gives you a huge permission slip to just go out there and be your best self. And also what I think it does, it takes out we can sometimes like over personalize things, like take things personally in life. And I think what it has a good way of showing us is that we're all individuals and we're all here to be something completely different to each other. We're not all here to be the same. We know that to be true, I feel. We have similarities. Human design is also known as the science of differentiation. So, there are things that we're similar on, but we're never going to be exactly the same. There's too many conditions around us in different, unique ways that doesn't allow us to be the same as somebody else. So it's a beautiful tool for getting into the detail about who you are, and I'm really happy and excited to start sharing so much more about it with you. Hopefully that gives you a bit of context about what human design is, a little bit more about me, and now I can kind of wrap it up with why I'm doing this podcast and the kind of like concept behind it. So Rare by Design, I think you can probably gather, is, the backbone of this podcast is about human design, the lens of human design, or seeing through the lens of human design, the rarity of who we are as individuals and the beauty that brings up, and the ways in which we get to express our uniqueness in society, our stories, our art, our poetry, our thoughts, our mind, all those things, what we bring to the table, and using characters and personalities to help you deepen your understanding of each other's journeys and what we all bring to the table, so to speak. But what I do want to hone in specifically on is a theory that I have about externally through our aesthetic and styling. So as you know, I have a background in fashion, have always been a creative. And one of, I guess, my strengths is having a good eye for detail, having a good eye for aesthetics and style. And whilst I've been doing human design readings and all the different kind of modalities that I share, there's one thing that I get complimented on the most is my sense of style. And for a long time, I used to cringe at that because I was a little bit like, there's more to me than what I look like externally. And then one day I started to believe that it's really important for me to take that on as a compliment and not as a hindrance or as a negative. I think one of the reasons why I took that on as a bit of a negative is that I'm not somebody who is surface layer leveled. Yeah. I like to get into the deep. I'm one of those to go in straight away on deep conversations if it commits so with the person that I'm communing with. And so sometimes I think being in the fashion industry or the creative industry in some ways often kind of gets a bit of a bad rap because it's not necessarily seen as being, deep. I have learned to embrace that actually the way that I present myself is because I'm comfortable with who I am. It's important for me to help others really step into, or it feels important for me to help others really step into their magnetism and what makes them magnetic through their sense of self and their self-expression. I think people show up people can show up more confidently when they truly know who they are, and there is an acceptance and an embodiedness about that. We're constantly changing, and nothing ever remains the same. We're always evolving as human beings, or at least that's the plan. And I would like to think that we all have the opportunity to do that. So in some ways, looking at someone's sense of style and their sense of self-expression might seem shallow. And in other ways, I think it's actually highlighting someone's creativity and their divineness. So I want to help women, specifically those in leadership roles. And there's a sense of power that we can take from really knowing who we are, and not waiting for a seat at the table, taking a seat or making a table ourselves. There are lots of opportunities for women to be recognised, to be honoured, so much more than they currently are. And the current world is already giving us signs that it's not really happy about us kind of taking up space. So I want this podcast to be for those who are style conscious and soul conscious. I think the two can sit hand in hand together. I think that it's possible for you to be a spiritually led person and also be fashionable at the same time. But within that, my theory is that human design gives us some cues as to how you get to step into that and how you do show up. And I'm going to explore through interviews and through sharing my knowledge about human design through the lens of human design. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy that you are listening to this podcast. I'm grateful for anybody who supports, shares, and wishes to be a part of this journey with me. I would love all of us to know, love, enjoy our rareness, and know that you are rare by design.